I am your humble host, Brent Hatley, and the Captain Kirk shirt.
Commander Data.
Commander Data.
Yeah.
Is, I didn't watch the new Star Trek. It's Tommy Greenery. I watched the old Star Trek with Captain Kirk and Sulu, and that was my Star Trek that I loved. I didn't watch any of the new ones.
I'm going to the convention, the Star Trek convention in Vegas at the end of August.
Wow. George Takei going to be there?
Yes. I want to ask him about kink shaming.
You know what? Ask him about that. Like, I guarantee you he has an interesting perspective on it.
Yeah.
He's a really super nice guy. I love George. He's awesome.
Yeah, he is.
He's a really, really great guy. And him and his husband, Brad, are both super nice. So coming up here in a minute, I'm going to talk about Alex Jones and this whole case that's gone on, which is one of the weirdest legal cases I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's insane. It really, really is. And there was a jury verdict today on how much he has to pay. So I'll share all that information with everybody in just a moment. And then when this show's over, this is going to be about 35 minutes. And then I'm going to head down to the dog park with the dog. And I'm going to jump on Facebook Live. And I'm going to talk on Facebook Live about, there's a documentary on Netflix right now called Trainwreck. And it is about the 1999 Woodstock in Rome, New York. So I've got all kinds of interesting things to say about this documentary. As I worked on a festival, on a 3-day festival called Livestock, 10 of them in a row. So, and I worked at every level of that festival. So I can give you a different perspective on this documentary that was visually well done. It was really slanted, but I'll explain all that on Facebook Live after this when I go down to the dog park. There's Donkey Teeth. What's up, buddy? Like, Donkey Teeth's been busy lately. Modding. Thank you, my friend, for all your hard work. But we're going to talk about Alex Jones. There's Grouper Lips. What's up? I love him. And we're going to talk about Alex Jones and this Alex Jones trial. So any of you who don't know who Alex Jones is,
doesn't listen to Howard.
Yeah, go Google him. That Howard has the parody of Alex Jones on his show that is really, really funny. It's really well done and really well written. And I won't pull the curtain back any more than that. But that was awesome, that Alex Jones bit. But again, Google him. He's a radio talk show host. Originally, he started on public access TV back in Austin in the 90s, in the mid to late 90s. He was on public access TV, and he morphed that into a talk radio show. He worked for this company called Genesis Communications. That's who distributed his show. And for a lot of years he wasn't particularly political, meaning in the Democrat versus Republican type thing, because he was very anti-George Bush. If you go back and listen to him, he did not like George W. Bush, but for some reason he took a liking to Donald Trump and became a Republican. But he was neither one of those things for a lot of years when he did InfoWars and Prison Planet and all that stuff.
It wasn't making him any money.
Not like it was not like it was. I didn't realize how much money he made once he got the Trump rub. Once he got the Trump rub, he started making a lot of money. They said today, I'll just give you this number. They said today that during the whole Sandy Hook thing, which was the shooting in Connecticut, he was making $800,000 a day on that. Yeah,
that's
insane,
outrageous.
Right? That's a lot of money to make per day, talking about that kind of stuff. So again, for those of you who don't know, Alex Jones is a talk show host. He became more into the Trump lane. He once Trump started running and Trump was on his show, actually. But before that, again, he wasn't really left versus right. He was more of a conspiracy type dude. And so fast forward to 2012, and at Sandy Hook, for those of you who don't know, I don't know who doesn't know this story, but in case you don't know it, there was a guy named Adam Lanza, I believe he was 18 or 19 years old, who took a gun to an elementary school in Connecticut and killed, I know it was 6 teachers and I think 19 elementary school children. This guy. And when you look at this picture of this Adam Lanza character, you can just look in his eyes and see that he's really mentally disturbed individual. Mm-hmm. So he it's just devastating when Tommy has kids. And I talked about this a little bit with the guys on Miserable Men last night who have kids. It's just it's insane, man. It is insane the amount of pain these parents were in. And Tommy, you have kids, and again, everybody that's on Miserable Men with me last night, from ESO all the way through to crazy ass Bob Levy, they all have kids, and they said it's unfathomable the pain that they would be in if they would have lost one of their children in elementary school to a situation like that. Mm-hmm. So I can't even imagine. Like, again, I don't have kids, so it's not my thing. Fanatic, Fanatic makes this point right here. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong in a second. He says Alex Jones is just doing like Tucker Carlson and playing up a persona. It's like pro wrestling. People fall for it or getting worked into a shoot. That with a lot of people is correct. Like Tucker is correct. Like he's doing a heel act like pro wrestling, and Sean Hannity's kind of doing a heel act in pro wrestling. Although Sean Hannity is a true believer, but he's a really super nice guy when you meet him in person. Tucker is a really nice guy when you meet him in person. Alex Jones is for real. Alex Jones is 100% for real insane. And you can look up his ex-wife, Kelly Jones, look her up on Twitter. She talks about what it's like to live with him. And you can even look this video up when they were getting divorced. Like he was flying over her house with a helicopter, like in a megaphone. Like people that are playing up a character and are actually saying, don't do that. Like when you're divorcing your ex-wife and you're going to family court, flying over her house in a helicopter is not really a bright thing to do. And it's not really a sane thing to do either. So that gives you an idea. And Alex Jones is one of these guys. It's the opposite of what you think it is. He can put on the mask and act normal for maybe a few minutes, but the mask slips off like that in person. And you can look, there's articles and articles about people that have worked with him who tell you like he is for real. His ex-wife, Kelly Jones, tells you he is for real insane like that. He is nuts. Mm-hmm. He's not, it's not an act with him. It really isn't. So he gets on his show and says that the Sandy Hook shooting never happened, which is just it's pure insanity. Because of course it happened. You have parents testifying in court, and when you go into court to testify, as Alex Jones found out, which I'm going to explain in a second, it's not being on InfoWars, and it's not even being on Twitch or YouTube. You can't just make up shit willy-nilly when you're in court, because you're under oath and there's a judge there, and you face the real risk of going to jail for perjury, which is lying under oath. And okay, Donkey Teeth, can you get rid of Drew for me? Thanks, buddy. I've had enough of him. It's just Donkey Teeth says he's also fucking with the judge, and that ain't going to work out. Yeah, that is a bad strategy. As somebody who's been to court, I can tell you right now that the last thing you want to do is piss off the person on the bench, which is the judge. And he got asked in court today. He was still on the stand today. He gets asked in court, has he ever put up a picture of the judge in this case on fire? And he says no. And then the lawyer puts up a picture from his website that he posted of the judge in that case on fire. So like he straight up lied right there in court. Like I don't think that he fully understands. I think he thinks that he can get on InfoWars and talk his way out of this stuff. I don't think he fully understands at all what the seriousness of all of this is. I really don't think he gets it. So here's what happened. He got sued by multiple families from Sandy Hook in Connecticut for getting on the air and not just saying that the shooting didn't happen, but he accused them of being crisis actors. He accused them of being of lying about their kids being killed. And then his sycophants, his people, started going after these people perfectly. So, wow. Yeah. He caused all kinds of pain for these people. And donkey teeth, time out pork chop too. Keep being a dick. So time him out. He gets on the air and causes all these people. He causes people to harass them, to call their phones, to call their work. I mean, all kinds of things. So they sue him. So when you get involved in a civil suit, there's a process at the beginning of the civil suit. It's called discovery. And during discovery, what you have to do is you have to turn over evidence to the other side. So in a criminal case, the prosecution has to turn over the evidence they have against you to you as the defendant. You don't have to turn over evidence to the prosecutor in a criminal case because you have a Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate yourself. But in a civil case, both sides have to turn over what's called discovery, and they got to turn over evidence to each other in a civil case. So Alex Jones and his lawyers basically in the discovery phase of these cases just refused to participate. So what happened was the judge entered a default judgment against him because he didn't participate in discovery. So that's what happens. If you don't participate in discovery, the judge can just enter a verdict against you, and that's what happened. So in this case, he had a default judgment entered against him. And what's been going on here is what's called the penalty phase. And this is where the jury decides how much money that you have to pay. And also in a civil trial, you don't get the option to not testify. Like if you're called to the stand, you've got to testify. In a criminal case, if you're a defendant, you don't have to testify because, again, you have the Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate yourself. So since you have that Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate yourself, then you don't have to testify. But in a civil case, you do have to testify. You do have to get on the stand if you're called, even if you're the defendant. So he was called to the stand. The other side's lawyers many times have caught him in lies, and they even asked him, "Do you know what perjury is?" So they're like, "Mr. Jones, do you know what perjury is?" And he's like, "What?" So this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets really interesting. Is Alex Jones, his lawyers, not in the regular, they didn't participate. This is so weird. They didn't participate in the regular discovery process, but in this process about the penalty phase, they gave the 2 years of everything on his cell phone to the other side by mistake. So there is a legal precedent called clawback. And what you can do if you're Alex Jones attorneys within a certain amount of time, you can go to the other side and say, well, we didn't mean to send you this, and this, so we need to pull all that back. That's privilege. They didn't do that in this case. So the other side have, okay.
I can't figure out where the ban button is.
Okay. Well, you got to figure that out. So
you're right.
You got to figure that out if you're going to be a producer. Thank you. Nonetheless, Barbie Bush, I'm gonna give you this is your one chance. Like I'm gonna give you my opinion on this, and I don't care if people have read about it or not. And I don't care if you want to listen or not. Sit and listen or don't. This guy's going to. Okay. Bye. So, nonetheless, if I may, let me turn this off. Okay. So in this case, they turn over 2 years of Alex Jones' cell phone over to the other side. The other side then has it. Alex Jones' lawyers don't claw back. That's the legal term. They don't claw back any of the information. So they have, the other side has all this information. So it turns out on Alex Jones' phone, and this is according to CBS Austin, there is child porn on his phone. So here's where he's screwed. The lawyers on the other side found this in the course of a civil case. They are officers of the court. They're bound to turn it over to the FBI, local authorities, whoever. They're bound by their rules of conduct to turn this over. So since they're bound by the rules of conduct to turn this over, Alex Jones really doesn't have any recourse other than to sue his lawyers for malpractice, which he will win on that because that is malpractice by his own attorneys. But that does not get you out of going to prison for an actual crime, which is having child porn on your phone. So that's number one. Number two, also, since they gave him 2 years of everything on Alex Jones' phone, any of his involvement in anything to do with January 6th is going to be on there, which one of the lawyers basically said today in court that the FBI has asked him for that information. And he said, barring an order from this judge telling him not to, he's turning that over to the FBI as well. So he is screwed on multiple levels. So then the story gets even more wacky. He gets on his show on InfoWars about the child porn being on his phone. He names one of the family members of these Sandy Hook victims and puts the guy's picture up and offers a $1 million reward because this guy planted the child porn on his phone and anybody that can prove that. But he's also told the court that his assets are negative $20 million. So how can you pay a $1 million reward if you've told the court that your assets are negative $20 million? So you can see he is in a, to quote the great Jim Leahy, he's in a shit tornado. And he should have checked the barometers in his ears for the shit barometer because the shit wins is what he's caught in.
Yeah.
He is screwed. So, this one, what's up, Shorty says, I don't think it was an accident. You know, my wife said that, and other people have said that. I think his attorneys, it's hard to believe that you would inadvertently send everything on your client's phone over the last 2 years to the other side. It's really unfathomable that would be an accident. So, and Shuley brought this up last night on Miserable Men. He's like, can you imagine if you're the attorney defending Alex Jones and you got to go home to your wife every night? She's like, I can't believe you're defending this guy.
Yeah.
So, who knows? But whether it was an accident or not, Alex Jones doesn't have a lot of recourse because you don't have a Fourth Amendment protection here because this information was voluntarily given over to the other side and they didn't claw it back in the time. They didn't claim it as privileged in the time that it was supposed to be claimed back. So that falls into an incidental discovery. Like the government didn't go in with a search warrant and illegally search his phone. Like this was turned over in the case of in the course of an event. So it is very interesting. So then you get to the jury verdict today, which is the first of two parts in a penalty phase of a civil trial. And the damages they awarded these families was $4.1 million. So that's the damages for the lies that he told on the air about these families. So the next comes the next part is, and this is the part that hurts the worst, is the intentional infliction of emotional distress and pain and suffering. Two reasons that this is bad. one, juries are going to feel sympathy for parents that lost their children at Sandy Hook. Second, this is the part that your insurance company doesn't cover. They don't cover intentional infliction of emotional distress and that kind of pain and suffering. They don't cover that part because you should have known better. So to give you an example, in the Gawker case with Hulk Hogan, he won the jury verdict for invasion of privacy, for them publishing stolen material. But then, so they gave him $100 million on that one, but he got another $41 million added on top of that in the pain and suffering phase of that trial. And that's what put Gawker out of business, because your insurance company doesn't cover that. You've got to pay that money. And that's what put Gawker out of business, was that part of it. The Hulk Hogan's attorneys did a really good job with layering that in there and putting Gawker out of business. So this guy says, that's what I'm talking about. This guy says, I hope Alex Jones has a good umbrella policy because the victim should go after that for sure. Yeah, he probably does have a good umbrella policy. He probably does. And that will cover the verdict today. But it's not going to cover is the pain and suffering that the victims had. So fast times, and I'll address this. This is a point. I mean, he says lies no different than Fox News or MSNBC cases. Jones is opinion and entertainment, not news. Yeah, but there's certain things like that so there's public figures and they're private citizens. So let me explain to you why Alex Jones got in so much trouble and why Fox News doesn't, or MSNBC doesn't, because there's public figures and there's private citizens. Alex Jones said something that he knew not to be true about private citizens, not public figures. He called the parents of these kids crisis actors and said they were lying about their children's deaths. That is not covered by the First Amendment. You are accusing people that are private citizens, not public figures, of actual crimes. That and crazy ones at that. It's a crazy lie at that. So Fox News, when you see Tucker Carlson or on MSNBC, when you see them talking about, Donald Trump or Alex Jones or anybody like that, you'll notice they stick to public figures, and public figures have less of a protection when it comes to defamation than private citizens do. Hulk Hogan, people get confused because of the way the media covered it. Hulk Hogan didn't win the Gawker case based on defamation. It wasn't a defamation case. It was invasion of privacy. They published a stolen tape. It was invasion of privacy. That's why Hulk Hogan won. But defamation, when you're talking about a public figure, is very difficult to prove. You've got to show what's called actual malice. But as a private citizen, you've got to show that Alex Jones said something about you specifically by name that he knew not to be true. And he did that in this case. He named these families by name and said that they didn't lose their children, that they were crisis actors. That's defamation all day. And that is not protected by the First Amendment. There's plenty of legal precedent for that. He is not going to win on appeal. He's not going to win on a banana peel. He ain't going to win on nothing. They have him dead to rights. That's why he didn't participate in the discovery phase of this trial, because they have him dead to rights. And he's getting ready to get hammered again when they come back with the pain and suffering phase of this. And he's got another lawsuit. He's got two more that I know of lined up. One of them has to do with the Parkland shooting, which was in Florida. He accused a guy of being the actual Parkland shooter, a guy who can prove that he was in Maryland at the time that it happened. And he wasn't in high school. The guy's in like his 20s. So, and then they have the guy on the Parkland shooter they have on videotape. So he's going to lose that one. And that guy in Maryland is also taking him to trial. He's not settling. He's going to trial on that. Then he's got another one that stems from Charlottesville, Virginia, from that Unite the Right rally. And he accused a guy of being in the CIA and orchestrating the whole murder of Heather Heyer. And the guy can prove that that's not true. So he's got a lot of legal liability, along with some criminal exposure if, the feds get a hold of the stuff that was on his phone. He is in a lot of trouble. And by the way, what a moron. Like, are you really, you're going to really get on the air and say something that's verifiable didn't happen? I mean, It's bad enough and it's disgusting enough to accuse Robert J. O'Neill, who's a Navy SEAL with a spotless record, of not killing bin Laden. That's disgusting enough, really. And Robert J. O'Neill's a conservative and a Trump voter and all that stuff. He's super conservative. So I absolutely met the guy twice at the Stern Show. I absolutely believe that he shot and killed bin Laden. He told Howard that on the air, told us that off the air. There is, again, Navy SEAL with a spotless record. And Alex Jones accused him of not killing bin Laden. Now, Robert J. O'Neill, because he wrote a book and came out and talked about that, he's a public figure. He's got, lots of followers on Twitter and has lots of opinions. But that's a lot. That's miles apart from accusing victims who lost their elementary school age children to a shooter of lying about that. That's insane. That is insane. Johnny G. Miami says, who would insure Alex Jones? Well, insurance companies will take money from anybody. If they write they'll give you the premium. If you pay it, they'll insure you. So yeah, it is. Yeah. Fast Time says, yeah, I see your point. Interesting. Yeah. It's just different than what Fox News and MSNBC do. They are absolutely doing entertainment. They're absolutely engaged in hyperbole, but they're all talking about people that are public figures. The people that, people get mad because Tucker Carlson names, reporters on his show by name. Well, they're reporters. They are public figures. They're putting their name on articles and opinion and editorials. Like that's part of the game. Tucker gets heavily criticized as well. Like he takes his fair share of criticism. But when people showed up to Tucker's house in Washington, D.C., and they were on his porch, that's a little bit far. And his wife was hiding in the closet. That's taking things too far. That's a crime, showing up at his house. Like the guy that, you might not like Justice Brett Kavanaugh and the rulings that he makes. But showing up at his house with a gun and with the intent to kill him, that's a crime. That's not covered. You're going to prison for that. So Alex Jones is responsible for really a lot of the mental pain and anguish that these families at Sandy Hook, and again, they lost very young children. And not that anybody losing their child, no matter what age it is easy or is fun. But I mean, that is especially heinous, elementary school children. And he is getting everything he deserves and more. And this is one more point I'll leave you with, and this is something that you can take to the bank in psychology. Alex Jones is a megalomaniac, and you can look this up in the DSM-5. He's a malignant narcissist. And the thing that you can always guarantee with malignant narcissists and megalomaniacs is they're going to crash and burn. And the only question is, there's two questions. When and how much damage are they going to do on their way down? Alex Jones, I said this for years. You can go check the tape on Bubba's show. I said this for a lot of years. Alex Jones is going to crash and burn. And he did spectacularly, and he did damage to families and himself on the way down. You know, another one, and this isn't going to be popular with a lot of you, but it's absolutely true, is Vincent McMahon. Good businessman, but absolutely a megalomaniac and a narcissist. And look how bad he just crashed and burned. They always crash and burn. Always. So the security guy at the Olympics got railroaded too. Yeah. So Donkey Teeth, you make a good point. His name was Richard Jewell. And you're talking about the 96 Olympics. There's a bomb went off at the 1996 Olympics, which was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And a security guard named Richard Jewell was blamed for it, and he never recovered from that. And in reality, the person that planted that bomb was a guy named Eric Rudolph, who was an anti-abortion terrorist. So, yeah, there's that we've all got to be really careful when we're sifting through things. And just like when this school shooting happened in Uvalde, people were mad at me on Twitter. So because I said, let's everybody wait until we get all the facts. And people were like, oh, well, what's going to change? Well, a lot changed. Look what we found out, that the police stood out there and didn't do anything to help those kids. Like, that's a fact that changed. Like, there's a lot of facts that you don't know in the first few hours of an incident happening. So what you should do is wait to comment. Just everybody wait to comment until you actually know what happened. So Donkey D says couldn't think of his name. Yeah. So well, that's going to be it for the Twitch show. In a few minutes, I'm going to get together. I'm going to head down to the dog park, and I'm going to jump on Facebook Live, and I'm going to talk about this documentary on Netflix called Trainwreck, which is about the Woodstock that happened in 1999 in Rome, New York. It's a very well done documentary, but I'm going to tell you all the problems that I have with it and why, coming up next on Facebook Live. So join me there here in a few minutes. Tommy?
Yeah.
What else you got?
Good. Hey,
what else you got?
Hey, go to TommyGreen.com.
There you go. TommyGreen.com. Check it out. And then we will, I'll see you in a few minutes on Facebook Live. Awesome. And
cool.
We'll follow this Alex Jones saga, because he's got a lot more trials coming. He's got a lot more trips in front of a lot more judges. And I got to tell you, if you can watch some of it on Court TV, it is really highly entertaining. It is really entertaining. Yeah. All right. See you guys. Good night.
That's the man, Brent Hatley. I love that dude.
This show is fucking trippy, man. It's fucking. You need some mushrooms and some acid and watch this show.